Good afternoon, everyone. Hope things are well. By far, the most positive and most ambitious transfer report about Newcastle United has came out just before. Massive claims inside the report, not just in terms of bringing players into Newcastle, also in terms of our players at Newcastle now. We've got a lot to get into, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure you get down there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming transfer news because it's going to be a busy summer. As for the shirts, nothing on the back just yet, but for new sightings, close. I think we are getting close now. We'll start off with a brief mention of Elanga because I made a video yesterday about the possibility of Elanga's representatives being in Newcastle this week. Now, Elanga himself yesterday commented on William Osula's post. Goal and assist for Osula out for the Denmark under-21s. W's in the chat, Cuzzo. This guy, what a flirter he is. He knows what he's doing. Best mates with Osula. Besties with Isak. He loves the pair with him, speaks well about them, and he's always engaging and interacting with them on social media. This is someone. Put the money down for him. Let's get a deal that's good for us. Elanga and Joao Pedro this summer. What an ambitious attack that will be. Heavily deft in quality and two very good players. But Elanga for now. No new transfer news about him, but still a flirt on social media. But let's warm you up with the transfer news first. Now, Luke Edwards has put quite a big article out just before. He stated in the article, Newcastle this summer is the summer where we are going to try and get Alexander Isak on a new contract. It will make him the highest earner at the football club. In my opinion, this is the summer that's going to tell you the future about Alexander Isak, because if he decides not to sign a new contract this summer and he decides to then continue on the old contract, next summer probably looks like the one where he may potentially leave, especially now with having Champions League football. That is what his agents have wanted. That's what he would wanted. He wanted Champions League football at Newcastle. He has Champions League football at Newcastle. So if now, despite what we have on the pitch, he still doesn't want to sign a new contract, probably doesn't look good for us. Next summer sounds like the one where we may have to potentially cash in on him. Not that I want us to, but yeah, this is a big summer for signing his contract. Let's hopefully get him on a new deal, extend that contract, and let's make sure we can nail him down for a couple more years. He has also stated that we have been scouting Ousmane Diomande out of Sporting Lisbon. Now, I'm not going to lie, I don't know much about him. I don't watch Portuguese football. I don't know an awful lot about Lisbon. But what I have seen on social media and what you guys have been saying about him is that he is a good option to go in for. He's someone like Newcastle could have as a up-and-coming centre-half. Botman is supposed to be that guy. He's supposed to do that job, but he's unfortunately had a bit of a bad string of injuries. And I think we've seen with Eddie Howe last season, he started to implement a five-back, and especially against bigger teams in the league, had Arsenal, Chelsea, for example, implementing that five-back against them seemed to be a lot better for being able just to narrow everything down, and it seemed to work. So for Eddie Howe, next season, he wants the opportunity to being able to have all these different players ready if we need to do a different formation. And Joao Pedro is also a fantastic example, which we'll mention in just a moment. But at first, I wasn't quite sure where Joao Pedro would play for Newcastle, because surely he wouldn't sign as a backup striker. And a lot of you guys would claim that you're likely be a number 10, so you probably have him in a midfield three. Of course, you take Joe Linton out, have Pedro higher up, and then Bruno and Tonali just behind Pedro. And yeah, it's certainly a viable option, not to mention you can also play up front, and probably if you desperately needed to, you probably could potentially squeeze him out wide. But again, Elanga is supposed to be the sign that could potentially fill that void for Newcastle. But speaking of Joao Pedro, it had been stated Brighton have an asking price of £60 million for Joao Pedro. Newcastle are willing to negotiate around that ballpark figure. The player is likely to be allowed to leave Brighton this summer. That's probably the biggest piece of transfer news we've had all summer long. Newcastle is willing to reach around that asking price, so we are talking not far the valuation. Now, truthfully for me, I actually think £60 million for Joao Pedro is not a bad signing. I don't think that's bad value. I was very vocal on James Truffle for £40 million. I'm very vocal on Elanga for £70 million. I'm very vocal on Mark Gee for over £60 million. I don't think these signings are worth it at all. Joao Pedro. Now, if you had told me now Newcastle have signed Joao Pedro for £50 million, I would tell you, fantastic signing, great value. I think it's an excellent deal for us. So the fact you then say, well, £60 million to Joao Pedro, I think that is a good deal. I'm going to be honest, I actually think that is good value. Got double figures in the league last season, still quite young, very versatile player. I think it's an ambitious signing, I think, for Newcastle in terms of us wanting marquee signings. I think he is a marquee signing. I think he is a statement. I think he is someone that with Champions League football is the sort of player that will come into this squad and heavily rejuvenate Newcastle going into major European matches. I think for £60 million, and as it's saying there, Newcastle is more or less willing to reach the asking price, so might be a little lower than that. I don't think £60 million is a bad deal. I actually don't. Yeah, Brighton's got a good sale from that. Yeah, Newcastle spent a lot of money on the player, but that's value. I actually think he's a good player. I think he's very good for what Newcastle wanted to do. And for me, with Eddie Howe, getting the best out of him on the pitch, someone that I think will heavily tune into Newcastle's squad well. And I'm saying it again, I think £60 million for him is not overpriced. I actually think it's a good deal for him. I'm not going to say it's an amazing, unbelievable value deal because I don't think it is, but I don't also think it's overpriced. I actually think £60 million is a fair price. I don't think it's that bad for him. And if you guys have been watching my transfer videos this summer, you will know I'm quite vocal and I'm very opinionated if Newcastle are potentially going in for a deal that's just not worth our time. But the fact that I'm this positive towards this one gives you an indication that I do think this is good. So Jacob Ramsey is currently one to watch at Newcastle due to Aston Villa's PSR rules. And now I will say quite positive things about Newcastle here because Aston Villa's had a very good time over the last few years. I would almost say they're parallel to Newcastle, but of course I think our trophy puts us just a little bit ahead of them in terms of progression. But Aston Villa this summer are going to struggle a lot. They can't sign players. They've got to sell players with PSR. Exactly what happened to us last summer where they can't progress. So it'll be a season of stagnation for Aston Villa and perhaps even a season of decline because without being able to bring players in, they'll lose a couple of players and maybe we'll drop off a little bit. So for Newcastle, we've done exactly what we should have done going into this window where PSR has been cleared up. We've cleared the books up. We've sold what we needed to sell. And Newcastle now are able to push forward. And although it's been perhaps a bit of a slow window, some of you guys watching this video may say about us now, we are certainly not going to sign no one. And I will say about Aston Villa now is that PSR is rubbish. It is rubbish. I don't like it. They don't like it. We don't like it. And I feel a bit bad for them, but I'm just thankful that's not us because that was us last summer. It was horrible. It was a nightmare. It was not the ambition that we wanted. And Newcastle somehow done better. We somehow done better on the pitch. It doesn't even make any sense. But Eddie Howe is just working wonders. The team is working wonders. And this summer now is the one where you can invest in, can bring players in. I've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this. Let's enjoy it. But in terms of Aston Villa, Jacob Ramsey is on the list due to their PSR struggles. Yeah, I've walked away from this video. By far, the most positive news we have heard all summer long. Newcastle seem to finally have something figured out. Pedro has been a signing that's been bubbling around in the background for just over a week now, and he's someone where it's not had the most media attention, but then he got linked at the same time as Elanga. And the fact that Newcastle are going in for both of these players at once is ambitious because you are talking two £60 to £70 million signings. Elanga for me is way overpriced, but is also very good. And having both of these in the attack, I mean, even looking at the attack now, with the exception of Wilson, I think everyone in Newcastle's attack will hopefully be nailed down to stay this summer. And then with two new players in there, wow, attacking quality is fantastic. We're looking good. I watched international games yesterday. Tino Livramento, what a player he is. Man of match performance for the England under-21s. As I mentioned before, William Osula also had a fantastic time. What a time it is to be a Newcastle fan. 3 years and 7 months of Eddie Howe. How has it been 3 years and 7 months, by the way? Time has flown by and feels like having Steve Bruce, less than 4 years ago? It's still surreal, isn't it? I can't believe it's been 3 years and 7 months. Time has actually flown. But yes, it's been the best 3 years and 7 months I can honestly say for Eddie for us now watching this video. So let's enjoy it. Let's keep pushing on. We've done what we wanted to do last season. Let's push on it and let's do more. Let's go out there and do more. Champions League football. We've got a much easier format this time. We have a better team this time. We'll be able to compete on this. And of course, in English football, trophies could potentially go for, and of course, finishing high in the Premier League table. So let's do that. Let's do that for Eddie Howe. Let's do that for ourselves, because Newcastle, what an amazing time this has been, and it continues to get more amazing. So let's have a good window now. Let's get some deals done. Let's keep the positivity going, and let's take care and make sure we look after ourselves so we can all watch this next season. But take care, and we will see you all in the next one.